Good evening. I'm Jim Axelrod. The UN Security Council is now calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas as the conflict in the Middle East intensified on this, its fifth day. 17 more people were killed today by Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. That makes at least 125 who've died since the bombing started Tuesday. Today, Israel also shelled positions in Lebanon. The rocket fire from Hamas into Israel has been stronger than expected, but so far no Israelis have died. Today, the Israeli Defense Forces warned people who live close to Hamas locations in the northern part of the Gaza Strip to evacuate. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he will not rule out a ground invasion. CBS News correspondent Holly Williams is in Gaza and has a vivid look at what the shelling sounds and feels like.
The Israeli military is pounding the Gaza Strip for the fifth night in a row. With more than 1,000 airstrikes, Israel says it's destroyed terrorist weaponry and command centers. But in reality, many of the targets are the homes of militants, and civilians have become collateral damage. Officials here say 2 disabled girls were killed when this care home was hit by an airstrike early this morning. Scores of civilian deaths have stoked Palestinian anger and frustration. And on the border, Israel is massing its troops. There's no ground invasion yet, but the Israeli government won't rule it out. This mosque was destroyed by a strike overnight. Once a place of prayer, it's now splintered beyond recognition. The Israeli military says this mosque was being used to store rockets, just like the ones the Palestinian militants are firing into southern Israel. Militants have launched hundreds of missiles at Israel since this escalation began. They've caused serious damage and injuries, but so far no Israelis have been killed, thanks mainly to the country's Iron Dome anti-missile defense system, which shoots the rockets down. Ala Toman is a nursing student who lives next door to the demolished mosque and showed us the damage done to his family's home. Like many Palestinians, he doesn't believe Israeli claims that mosques are being used to harbour militants and their weapons. The Israeli military says that the mosque was being used to store rockets. Is that true?
No, that's not true. Yes.
Can you be sure?
Yes, I sure. I pray in this mosque. I see anything around this mosque, nothing came inside or go outside.
Holly Williams joins us now from Gaza City. Holly, very dramatic video at the top of your piece. How close are you to that?
Well, Jim, the strikes have been coming in this evening much more frequently than we've seen on previous nights. The Gaza Strip is really taking a pummeling, and one of those hits struck around 200 yards in that direction, just beside our hotel. It lit up the sky, and it's perhaps not surprising because earlier today we saw and heard rockets being launched by militants from that location.
Holly Williams in Gaza, thank you. The woman who was beaten by a California Highway Patrol officer last week remains hospitalized tonight. And as Terry Okita tells us, she does have a TV in her room, and her lawyer says that's only compounding her pain.
Her lawyer says 51-year-old Marlene Pinnock now has double vision and painful lumps to her head and shoulder after a CHP officer was caught on camera repeatedly punching her. Attorney Carrie Harper says Pinnock also suffered an emotional blow, seeing the video on her hospital TV.
She has had to be traumatized and watched her beating over and over again.
CHP Commissioner Joe Farrow says the tape demands a thorough investigation.
It becomes a tragedy if an organization like the Highway Patrol or any organization chooses to ignore it, and we simply bury our head in the sand and ignore it. That is not what we're doing.
But outraged community activists in Los Angeles have held rallies all week, including today. They're calling for a federal investigation of the officer. Congresswoman Maxine Waters went even further, saying this is enough to demand his dismissal.
Had it not been videotaped, it would have been a he said, she said in this case.
Totally important. It is absolutely crucial.
Civil rights attorney John Burris is also representing Pinnock.
Certainly, if you see someone walking down the freeway, you kind of wonder what's going on with that person. Notwithstanding her mental condition at the time, There was nothing about what happened to her that was justifiable.
The CHP is calling for patience during its investigation, but a civil lawsuit is already in the works.
We heard today from the 15-year-old who was the only survivor of a shooting this week near Houston that killed her mom and dad and her 4 siblings. Vanita Nair has the story of a remarkable girl speaking publicly just 3 days after this horrific tragedy.
Thank you all for coming and showing your support for me and my family. Stay strong.
15-year-old Cassidy Stay suffered a skull fracture and lost part of a finger trying to protect herself from being shot. She is the sole survivor after her ex-uncle broke into her family's home and killed both of her parents and all 4 of her siblings. She survived by playing dead. Today, she spoke for the first time since being released from the hospital, quoting Harry Potter.
Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. If one only remembers to turn on the light. I know that my mom, dad, Brian, Emily, Becca, and Zach are in a much better place, and that I'll be able to see them again one day.
The man accused in the family's death is 33-year-old Ronald Lee Haskell, who appeared in a Harris County courtroom yesterday. He's accused of breaking into the family's home while searching for his ex-wife, then shooting them. Haskell collapsed twice in court as the capital murder charges were read. He had to be removed from the proceeding in a chair. While police credit Cassidy for calling 911 after Haskell left her home and thwarting another potential shooting spree, today she wanted to thank the community.
I'm really thankful for all of the people that have been praying for me and keeping me and my family in their thoughts the past couple days. And I would like to thank all of the first responders, nurses, and doctors that have taken care of me. I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm on a very straightforward path to a full recovery.
More than $220,000 has been raised on the internet for Cassidy. At the end of today's gathering, 600 balloons were released, 100 for each of the victims. Vanita Nair, CBS News, New York.
If you listen closely, that faint sound you might hear is the cheering still going on in Cleveland. 4 years after he left, LeBron James is on his way back, reportedly signing a 2-year, $42 million deal to play for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dean Reynolds reports from a city that's in quite the forgiving mood.
3 great words from LeBron James: I'm coming home.
Cleveland was rubbing down the goosebumps today, relishing the headlines and reliving the moment.
The decision is over. LeBron James, a Cleveland Cavalier.
How about that? Among the happiest to hear the news was a man named David Blatt. Blatt is the rookie coach of the Cavaliers who took the job just last month. He spoke to Comcast Sportsnet.
To say that I'm excited and happy would probably qualify as one of the great understatements of the millennium.
So great is James' gravitational pull that Las Vegas bookies shifted the Cavaliers from non-contenders to odds-on favorites to win next year's NBA championship. And Forbes magazine said his move had almost instantly added $100 million to the value of the franchise, which can now demand top dollar for cable rights to their games. A roller coaster at the Cedar Point Amusement Park in Sandusky may soon bear the James name, as may a burger at a local restaurant. The possibilities are endless.
He's like an inspiration for me.
In nearby Akron, where James grew up, youngsters were climbing the same hills he once did on his way to the top.
I think LeBron James is a good role model. He helps people out.
James will be getting a contract from Dan Gilbert, the Cavs owner, who blasted James as a coward 4 years ago, only to welcome him back to the fold on Friday. And a tweet from Gilbert about his 8-year-old son said it all. Daddy, does this mean I can finally wear my LeBron jersey again? Yes, it does, son. Yes, it does.
NBA schedules haven't come out for next year, so we don't know when LeBron James will be playing his first game back here in Cleveland, but ticket agents tell us that even the cheapest seats, the $25 seats for that game, will probably go for $400.
Some more today. They held an auction to celebrate a sports legend even bigger than LeBron. It's been 100 years and 1 day since Babe Ruth made his Major League debut. On the block, the first ball the Babe ever hit at Yankee Stadium for a home run, and his 1918 contract with the Boston Red Sox. Such items are rare now, but when we visited with Babe Ruth's 97-year-old daughter, Julia Ruth Stevens, she said it wasn't for any lack of generosity on her father's part. I've heard he never refused an autograph request.
No, he never did. That is true. Except for sometimes there'd be so many people around when he came out of the clubhouse, and he'd start signing autographs, and Mother would say, dear, you're going to have to stop right now because we have guests coming for dinner. So he said to the crowd, he says, don't worry, I'll be here tomorrow, you come back.
I've heard the stories that even as your dad was dying, he was signing slips of paper and telling people to take them out to the kids who were gathered at the hospital.
Yeah, that's right. Those little cards, blank cards. And he would, you know, look out the window and see the kids down there, and he'd say, get me my cards and my pen. And his writing never changed, no matter how sick he was. His Babe Ruth was just like the Babe Ruth that it had always been.
Tomorrow, Argentina and Germany play for the Cup, and as Elaine Quijano tells us, there will be a security presence unlike anything Brazil or many other places has ever seen.
No one can accuse Brazil of scrimping on security for soccer's biggest event. The country totaled nearly $1 billion in security costs, 5 times what South Africa spent during the 2010 Cup. Come Sunday, Rio de Janeiro may look like an occupied city. 25,000 troops, military police, firefighters, and National Guardsmen are being deployed, largest ever in the city's history. The state's security chief, José Mariano Beltrami, told reporters it is an immense responsibility, and we are working to prevent this kind of situation. Police clashed often with anti-cup protesters early in the tournament. We witnessed security forces in Sao Paulo using tear gas and pepper spray to break up an opening day march before it ever got started.
Da região metropolitana do Rio de Janeiro.
This is Rio's new $45 million command and control center, which was modeled on counterterrorism centers in New York and around the world.
Em alta definição.
The center's deputy director, Edval Novais, demonstrated the massive video wall, which scans thousands of cameras mounted across the region, even live cams in cop cars and helicopters.
Segurança do Maracanã.
When protesters moved toward the Maracanã Stadium last month, this was the center in action, scouring those live feeds and redeploying forces. Last year, Novais told me, they marched along this route. This year, we didn't even let them get that close. We stopped them here. Sunday, police will focus not just on protesters, but also on fans. Tens of thousands of Argentines, bitter rivals with supporters of Brazil, have invaded Rio for the Cup final. Win or lose, tensions will be high after the game. Then the planning will begin again for an even bigger security challenge when Rio hosts the 2016 Summer Olympics.
Meanwhile, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has condemned the Israeli regime's systematic crimes against Palestinians. Rouhani, who's also the rotating head of the non-aligned movement, has in a statement called on all regional and international bodies to move quickly to help end the Gaza blockade and dispatch humanitarian aid to the besieged enclave. Rouhani also ordered Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif to use the full capacity of the non-aligned movement to condemn and confront Israel's brutal offensive on Gaza. The Iranian president talked to the leaders of several key NAM member countries as well as the Arab League Secretary General regarding the issue. Rouhani said the massacre of innocent women and children in Gaza is unbearable and against all humanitarian and international rules. Rouhani said the UN Security Council has yet to react to the Israeli attacks, highlighting the need for a more active UN role. Well, there have been 2 separate roadside bombings in Afghanistan. Nearly a dozen people are confirmed dead. The deadliest attack happened in southern Kandahar province, where a bomb struck a civilian car, killing 8 people. Local police are blaming Taliban militants. Meanwhile, in the eastern Nangarhar province, another bomb struck a vehicle in the city of Jalalabad, leaving a civilian and a police officer dead. No group has immediately claimed responsibility for the blast. The violence comes during the Taliban's annual spring offensive, seeking to undermine the Afghan government.
Well, China has formally established a new county-level city, in the southwestern Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The country's newest city, Kyrgyz, covers an area of over 1,900 square kilometers with about 85,000 people living there. It is located on the border with Kazakhstan and is a key land port. And lying on the Silk Road, Kyrgyz plays a strategic role in China's link to Central Asia. One of the joint projects between China and Turkmenistan, the Central Asia gas pipeline, ends here. Local authorities think Kyrgyz's new city status would boost its development and China's opening to the West.
Absolutely, you know, when a
race came about, I was climbing in Greenland with a friend of mine, Chris Bonington, and he told me how much it cost to climb Mount Everest. Well, it's a lot of money. I thought, but suppose we did the equivalent for sailing. What is it? It's a circumnavigation. If I did what the Sherpas do for the climbers, I supply the boat, the skipper, the training, and then put people on that boat, I can offer people who haven't got enough money for a boat or have a boat, never got confidence, the chance to achieve the ultimate in sailing. It's evolved quite noticeably. It's much more of a race now. People come for the race, not just to sail around the world, they want to race around the world.
I've been sailing all my life, and the chance to sail around the world is like any sailor's dream. So to have completed that and to also have won, just icing on the cake.
Gentlemen, let's put your hands together for
10 months, it feels like just like that. But when I think about what we have been through in the last 10 months, all the tough conditions, all the happy moments, it's just like so touching, very exciting to be back, and such an honor to be the first Chinese female to be sailed around the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Chica.
My brother was sitting with his friends after he prayed at his friend's house. What was his crime? He has been martyred with all his friends. He left behind 5 daughters and a boy. They took my father from me, but I'm still young. I saw his images on TV. I've been told by my uncle that he was a martyr.
Israel is keeping up a steady stream of attacks on the besieged Gaza Strip, killing 11 more Palestinians in its latest airstrikes. The air raids targeted 4 different locations in the Kosovo enclave. Officials say 2 of the victims were killed when a strike hit a facility for the disabled in Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. Israel has pounded more than 1,000 targets in the impoverished region since Tuesday. 119 Palestinians, most of them women and children, have lost their lives, and about 800 others have been injured. Tel Aviv has now massed thousands of troops along the Gaza border in preparation for a possible ground incursion. Let's cross over to Gaza and speak to our correspondent Halla As-Safadi. Halla, last time we spoke to you, the Gaza Strip was still being pounded right behind you. Tell us a bit more about what the situation is like right now.
Well, the last 15 minutes were very intense. We've been hearing explosions all over the Gaza Strip. There were 3 explosions in Gaza City. One targeted a house, and there are some reports about injuries. Another one just took place right now in North Gaza. 2 houses were attacked, and they're calling on ambulances to come, but there's difficulty in reaching those houses. Also, there were heavy attacks on West Gaza City, North Gaza, in both Beit Lahia and Beit Hanun, and there's news that a girl, 1.5-year-old girl, was injured along with her dad. And earlier there was also an attack on the National Bank, and this is confirmed right now. There were the total of the houses demolished so far are 196, with the latest 3 or 4 houses that were demolished like 15 minutes ago. Also, there's the Salah Benevolent Society was also targeted 15 minutes ago. Or more than 15 minutes ago. This rises the death toll to over 125, with over 900 people are actually injured. This night was also another sleepless night. The Gazans actually woke up on only the sounds of the heavy or deadly Israeli cargo, offloading their deadly cargo actually. Also, the Ministry of Health has called last night to bring Israel to justice and to actually put Israel or form an international trial against the Israeli violations of a human right, as they killed a doctor, they injured a paramedic, and also they targeted an ambulance yesterday and the day before. There were also casualties reported in hospitals, such as the European Hospital in Khan Yunis, also Al Wafa Hospital in East Gaza, and actually there are Human Shield international activists standing since last night in front of Al Wafa Hospital because it was warned that it would be targeted, and also the Red Crescent societies were also targeted. So basically right now Israel is targeting a number of different places, including hospitals, houses, lands. At the moment of me speaking right now, there's a sound of a huge explosions in the area around us. We will know where this is and also confirm with you. What is really saddening, or the real tragedy here, is about the children. We've been seeing a lot of videos and pictures and actually dead bodies in hospitals of children and innocent children. A person or a human cannot just stand silent in front of those pictures. They bring anyone to tears except for Mahmoud Abbas, obviously, and Ban Ki-moon, and the Israeli community, and those who support Israel aggression on Gaza. Last night, 2 days ago, there was a father crying over his 4-year-old child, dead body, who lost half of his head, and asking him to wake up as he got him some toys and some things. Another dad, his only daughter was critically injured, and he was crying loudly, "Take my blood and give it to my child and bring her back to life." Another 6-year-old boy is laying in bed in a hospital, and basically he doesn't even know that his family was targeted. This situation is only getting harder. Kids are being targeted, and the international community stands silent.
Now, Hala, I'll give you a moment to collect yourself there, but for those of our viewers who are watching, as you've just pointed out, the situation is very dire, a humanitarian catastrophe in the making. Palestinians do not know whether their houses will be targeted, whether once they leave the house their loved ones will be safe or not. This is being exacerbated by the fact that the Rafah border crossing is closed. A few dual nationals were allowed to leave, but there are hopes that the Egyptian side would let in some medical supplies. What are the hopes for that? Will that even transpire?
Well, yesterday in Al Shifa Hospital, there was a press conference for the Ministry of Health where they said that they actually run out of number of medical equipment, and they call on the international community and the Egyptian authorities to bring in medications and needed equipment. The Rafah border is closed. It closed yesterday, and they only allowed around 11 injuries to actually cross to Egypt, and plus those who hold an Egyptian passport. The areas crossing yesterday, the Israeli-controlled areas crossing, was also opened only for those who hold foreign passports, and most of the foreigners, around 250, left Gaza Strip by Friday evening. So the situation is totally deteriorating in hospitals. Egypt's situation is. People are actually surprised of what Egypt is doing right now. This is the first time Egypt actually keeps slapping the Palestinian people on their faces since the day one of escalation. We're talking about 900 injuries here. We're talking about kids, innocent kids, and children, and women, and elderly men who are being killed. And until now, what Egypt is doing is nothing. They opened the borders for those who hold Egyptian passports, as if the rest of Palestinians with no Egyptian passports are not human beings, are not people who actually deserve medication by international law. Even like the least of their human rights are being violated, and no one is actually caring of the simplest rights that maybe they don't even talk about in their own countries. Who talks about reaching a hospital for being treated? Who talks about a right for medication? Who talks about a right to get medicine? This is only heard here in Gaza, especially during those difficult days. Gazans are suffering on a daily basis, not to mention the Israeli blockade, not to mention the water shortage and the fuel shortage and the electricity problems. So among all of those, now we're actually suffering a war while the international community chooses to stand silent. And what actually angers Palestinians even more, that they are actually led by the Palestinian Authority Chief Mahmoud Abbas, that seems not to understand what's really happening on the ground, and is still calling for peace talks while people are dying, while he actually showed sympathy with those who are killed on the Israeli side, the 3 Israeli settlers who already live in illegal settlements in Palestine, in the occupied lands. So we cannot only blame the international community, but we actually blame a person who claims to be a leader of the Palestinians.
Okay, Halla Savadi, they're reporting from Gaza. Halla, thank you for that update.
We planned for a secured area of around 1 to 2 kilometers to avoid the landslide killing more people. So we are going to cordon off the length of these hills to avoid any deaths.
Le maire a décidé de mettre en place cette opération de déguerpissement parce que
the mayor decided to undertake this evacuation operation because since 2009, the commune of Atekube has always endured the worst catastrophes. Deaths due to landslides are always in Atekube. So we wanted to avoid that. We wanted to contain the danger so that first and foremost we save lives.
D'abord sauver la vie des populations et puis pour que la commune n'en risque plus de mort.
We close tonight with a look at someone who does her job with style. Now, that might describe a lot of people, but what makes this woman newsworthy isn't just how she approaches her job, but where. When Kat Hollick is on the traffic beat, she's all about the traffic, but she's moved by the beat.
If it makes me move, I'm playing it. And the oldies, and especially Ella Fitzgerald and the big band era, That makes my hips go. Thank you, dear.
Hollick sees a part of her job as chasing sadness with a smile in the town where she works.
We all have our problems, but a smile will help you through it. Anger and sadness will not. So I want people to smile. I want them to try to get through their problems, even a moment.
And if any place knows sadness, it is where she works, Newtown, Connecticut.
Because there's a lot more good than there is evil. There truly is. Sadly, we all talk about the evil instead. We got to start talking more about all the good people that are out there. All the good people, what they do, even if it is a simple thing of smiling.
Kate Stack works near Hollick's post at Newtown's St. Rose of Lima Church, where they held funeral after funeral in December of 2012.
For a while, everything around here was a little sad. It took a while for everybody to get over it. And seeing someone who's still just as happy as they were before really helped.
Dancing traffic agents have delighted drivers from Providence, Rhode Island to the Philippines. Hollick just wants to change the conversation around Newtown.
God bless you. We love you.
Thank you, darling.
Kat Hollick is such a hit, she sometimes stops traffic, which technically might be at cross purposes with her job. But no one's complaining.
So I am probably the richest person in the town. I don't have a dime to my name. But I have so many people that give me their love as I give them mine.
Kat was born and raised in Newtown and knows many of the families who lost children that day.